your family was known for being kind of rebels, for being people that took a different path. In your life, who was someone, either personally or historically, that may have been a rebel that you looked up to or were inspired by?
Well, I think, my father and my uncle were, as you said, they saw themselves in the mainstream, at least in the beginning. But, I think my uncle, and I've written a book about this, found himself surrounded by war hawks who were willing to sacrifice 38 million Americans in nuclear war if they could kill 130 million Russians, and that was a no-brainer for them. And my uncle was surrounded by those people. I think when he died, Eisenhower had warned on my birthday in 1960, on January 17th, just before he left office, that our nation, we would lose democracy to the military-industrial complex. And I think that's an idea that drove my uncle, and it drove my father, who ran 5 years later, pledging to end the war and to start investing in our children, our schools, our health systems. And I think our country could have gone a very, very different way. But my father, by the end, knew that he was fighting an uphill battle, and he did see himself as a revolutionary.
Along the lines of what you just said, taking a stand on this issue had a professional price. So at what point did you decide that you're going to take the stand, even though you knew that professionally, maybe your colleagues in your law firm, didn't want you to do this, that might be bad for business?
Well, to me, I mean, this issue has cost me a lot. It's cost me probably 85% of my income. I used to do 60 speeches, highly paid speeches, I'm embarrassed to say, at colleges and corporations a year, and nowadays I get none, because if somebody hires me, they'll immediately get 1,500 emails from trolls and, this army that pharma is able to deploy. I've lost relationships, I've lost jobs, business associates, those kind of things, but to me, being part of this issue is one of the greatest privileges of my life. For the people that are my allies and my brothers and sisters in this fight, but also I don't have a choice. I see children if I saw one child getting autism or autoimmune disease or food allergies from a vaccine, it would be worth spending my whole life trying to prevent that from happening again. And it's happening to 54% of our children. And so I really don't have any choice, but I also, I grew up in a family where, the whole idea that, you give yourself to something larger, that you give yourself to principle, that our lives are going to be consumed in a battle to accomplish something that is worthwhile. And that's a privilege, to be able to take a meaningful part and to be an effective part of that battle. So I feel like one of the luckiest people in the world. And I feel like, I feel also that we're going to win. I think they're getting stronger and stronger, the bad guys, every day. But they've built an edifice on fraud upon fraud upon fraud upon fraud, and it's so high and so unwieldy, and they've done so much overreaching that they've opened themselves up, and there are a lot of places now where they're vulnerable. And it's worth remembering that every one of the 4 vaccine makers who are making the 72 mandated jabs that our children get today, they're all convicted felons. Every one of them. Collectively, they've paid $35 billion in 10 years in damages and penalties for bribing doctors, for blackmailing doctors, for lying to doctors, for defrauding federal and state public health regulators. And the idea that some Democrats have that, that they're not doing it with their vaccine products, what they're doing with every other product, is this kind of weird cognitive dissonance that is almost a kind of mass psychosis. And I think when people realize what has happened and what is happening to our children, there's going to be so much anger. But we'll have an opportunity then to have really massive changes in the way that we look at health and public health, and the way that, maybe we start accepting all of the lies from the pharmaceutical industry and start figuring out a new way to keep people healthy.
I always just kind of close these interviews with giving you a chance to deliver a message to the CalJam audience and to our network that maybe you haven't had a chance to say to them on stage, the kind of takeaway message that you have that you would want to share with them.
Well, the message that I would have for the CalJam audience is just gratitude. Brotherhood, it does not come from blood. It comes from shared values. And I feel that, so much brotherhood when I come to these events, and sisterhood, that all of us are a group of people who share values, but also share a lot of courage, and understand everybody out there who is standing up for these things. All of these chiropractors have lost clients. They've been vilified. They've been ridiculed. They've felt the sting of contempt, of the anger and the lash of the pharmaceutical industry and all of its toadies and cronies, and yet they're standing tall. And I mean literally standing tall. They all have really good posture. And it's just really fun being around people. We all feel beleaguered in our day-to-day lives. And all of these people come from communities where they are at some level beleaguered. And to have them all come together in one place and share their stories, and share their courage and their demonstrations of nobility, of love for our country, of affection and affinity for our democratic values, and above all for our children and good health is really, for me, it's a privilege. It's a privilege to be part of this event.